thing and DIY projects, especially when it comes to like repurposing
Right.
plants that people have just kind of tossed out.
Yeah, it's amazing what some people just throw away.
Yeah, like I was looking through these, and there's some pretty cool stuff here.
It is cool stuff.
So let's just dive right in.
Okay.
So right off the bat, in a lot of these videos, we see the person in the video like digging out all these plants, like bushes, ivy, all sorts of things.
Like they don't even care what it is.
Yeah, it's like a plant rescue mission.
Yeah.
And then they sort through everything and then replant them in all these like crazy containers. Like they're using anything they can find.
Exactly. And what I think is really interesting is that they use all this stuff that most people would just throw away.
Yeah, like they're really resourceful.
Totally. Like remember that bit about using dead leaves to hold the soil in place?
Oh yeah, that was clever.
That's actually a pretty important part of permaculture.
Really?
Yeah, using those dead leaves as mulch. It's like you're copying what happens in nature.
Okay.
And it helps the soil, like it adds nutrients and improves the structure.
Interesting.
And for people who are gardening in a city, that's really helpful because it keeps the soil from drying out so you don't have to water it as much.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's all about working with nature.
Yeah.
Instead of fighting against it.
Right.
Which I think is cool.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of working with what you have, this person seems to be able to like find a use for anything.
Oh yeah.
They're using plastic containers, shovels, rakes, even like dollies to move stuff around.
It's pretty inspiring.
It is.
It really shows you that you don't need to buy a bunch of fancy stuff to have a nice garden.
Exactly. Like it's all about being resourceful and creative, seeing the potential in everyday objects.
Yeah, the make do and mend attitude is something we could all learn from.
For sure. And they're not afraid to go big either.
Oh, what do you mean?
There's this one part where they drag out this huge pot to the front yard.
It's massive.
Yeah, and they start filling it with leaves like they're building a giant...
A leaf fortress.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I think it's really interesting how they position it, too.
Right.
Like they're trying to block the view from the street.
It's like they're making their own little private world.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Creating a green barrier.
Okay, so one thing that I noticed right away...
What's that?
Is that the dialogue in these videos is a little bit different.
It's unique.
Yeah, unique is a good word for it. We hear a lot of like repetitive phrases, and sometimes it seems like they're making up words.
Yeah, it's like they have their own language.
Yeah, and they keep talking to someone named Abby,
right?
Who we never actually see.
It's a mystery.
It is a mystery, but it's kind of interesting how they communicate.
I know, it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's definitely not your typical YouTube video.
Definitely not. But you know what I find really remarkable is how they still manage to give really clear instructions.
Yeah.
Even with the way they're talking.
Yeah, it's like they've found a way to make it work.
Yeah, and it reminds us that there's no one right way to communicate.
Exactly.
As long as you can get your message across.
And speaking of unexpected things...
Oh boy, what now?
There's this whole section on treating toenail fungus.
Really?
With salt water and orange juice.
I don't know about that one.
Yeah, that one threw me for a loop too, but, you know.
Hey, you never know.
It shows that they're not afraid to try new things.
Exactly.
And they seem to have a DIY solution for just about everything.
That's true. They're very resourceful.
Yeah, like, even when it comes to home repairs.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that whole saga with the leaky toilet?
Oh, yeah, that was classic.
Yeah, and they send Abby to Home Depot to get some universal whatchamacallits.
With very specific instructions.
Oh, yeah, they were very specific about where to go and what to look for.
It's amazing how they can be so detailed and yet so vague at the same time.
I know, right?
It's like their own special blend of practicality and out-of-the-box thinking.
Exactly.
And you got to admire their resourcefulness. They use YouTube to figure out how to fix things.
Yeah, they're not afraid to learn new things.
And then, of course,
you
can't forget about the whole melon and underground parking situation.
Oh, man, Abby's errands are never simple.
It's like they always turn into an adventure.
It's true, and then back at home, the speaker is absolutely convinced that the toilet leak isn't coming from the shower.
Even though there's water everywhere?
Yeah, it's like a flood in there.
But they eventually figure it out.
They do. They find a crack in the toilet tank.
And then out comes the Flex Seal.
Who knew you could use that for plumbing?
It's amazing what you can do with that stuff.
It is, and they're actually surprisingly meticulous about it.
Right.
Like, they carefully apply the sealant.
Yeah.
And clean up all the water.
You wouldn't expect that level of detail?
No, not with their unconventional way of talking, but it shows that they really care about doing things right.
They do. They have their own way of doing things, but they take pride in their work.
Yeah, and before the sealant can even dry, they leave a note on the toilet seat.
A note?
Yeah, for anyone else who might need to use the bathroom.
Oh, what does it say?
Basically, it's a list of rules for the space.
Rules.
Yeah, it's clear they like to be in control.
I could see that.
And they want to manage their environment very carefully.
That makes sense, especially after seeing how organized they are with their tools and everything else.
Exactly. So, based on what we've seen so far, what are your first impressions of this person?
Well, I'd say they're definitely resourceful,
Yeah.
determined, and they have a very unique way of approaching challenges.
For sure. And even though their communication style is a little unconventional, there's a clear logic and thoughtfulness behind their actions.
I agree. They're a really interesting study in contrasts.
Definitely. And I'm curious to see what else we can learn from these videos.
Me too. There's still a lot to unpack here.
Okay, so we're back, and we're still diving deep into the Doctor's Brew YouTube channel.
You know, it's amazing how much we've already seen.
Yeah, I know, right? Like plant rescues, crazy DIY solutions, and that whole unique way of talking.
It really makes you think.
It does. It shows that you can find valuable knowledge and inspiration in the most unexpected places.
Absolutely. And speaking of unexpected, let's talk about the speaker's recording setup.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole other thing.
They've got multiple cameras going on.
Yeah, like glasses with a built-in camera.
Oh, right. And that head-mounted tablet thing.
It's like a one-person film crew.
I know. It's wild. And it really shows how dedicated they are to recording everything.
Yeah, like every little detail of what they're doing.
It's not just about showing the steps. It's about capturing their whole thought process.
And they're not just using video either.
Oh, no, they've got it all.
Screen capture software, voice recorders.
Oh, yeah. And what was that program they used?
Problem Step Recorder, I think.
Right, the one that records every single click and keystroke.
Yeah, it's like they're creating this digital trail of everything they do.
It's fascinating.
It is. It's like this need to document and control every aspect of their environment.
Yeah, to have evidence of their actions and decisions.
It's kind of funny how that contrasts with the sometimes chaotic nature of their project.
You know, right.
So with all this technology, what are they actually capturing?
Well, we see them doing all sorts of things, gardening, home repairs, even stuff on the computer like file management and video editing.
Yeah, they're all over the place.
And they're constantly talking to Abby.
Right. Giving instructions, asking for help.
Narrating their every move.
It's like Abby is always right there with them.
Even though we never see them.
I know it's weird, but it's also kind of endearing.
It is. It's like they have this special bond.
Yeah, and the way they give instructions to Abby is interesting too.
How so?
Sometimes it's super detailed, like step by step.
Right.
And then other times it's more like they're just thinking out loud.
It keeps you on your toes.
It does. You never know what's coming next.
And it really challenges our ideas about how people communicate.
Yeah, they might not be using proper grammar or sentence structure.
But they still get their message across.
Exactly. It's a reminder that there's more than one way to communicate effectively.
As long as the meaning is clear.
Right. And speaking of unique approaches, have you seen their file management system?
Oh yeah, it's intense.
It's incredibly intricate.
All those folders and subfolders.
And the way they rename files with specific codes.
It's impressive, but it also seems a little overwhelming.
Yeah, like I wouldn't even know where to begin.
It takes a certain kind of mind.
It does. It's like they have this deep need for order and control.
Yeah, and they've created this system that makes perfect sense to them.
Even if it's a bit much for the rest of us.
Exactly.
And then there's the whole process of uploading videos to YouTube.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other saga.
They're transferring files from all these different devices.
It's a multi-step operation.
It really shows their dedication.
It does. It makes you wonder why they put so much effort into it.
Yeah, what's their motivation?
Maybe they want to share their knowledge with the world.
Or maybe they just like to document their life for themselves.
It could be both.
It probably is. They seem to really enjoy the whole process of creating and sharing.
They do,
Yeah.
but they also have moments of frustration.
Oh, yeah. Especially when it comes to dealing with other people.
Like their neighbors and building management.
Right. Remember those rants about the broken showers in the gym?
Oh, yeah, and that botched repair job that took forever to fix.
It's clear that those things really get under their skin.
It's understandable they take so much pride in their own space.
Yeah.
And when they see others being careless or incompetent, it drives them crazy.
Like a clash of values.
Exactly. And what's interesting is how they try to explain these things to Abby.
Yeah, like they're trying to teach them a lesson.
Almost like a warning.
Like, hey, this is what happens when people don't take care of things.
Yeah, or watch out for these kinds of situations.
Right. It's like they're trying to protect Abby from the same frustrations.
It shows a different side of them, a more caring and nurturing side.
Yeah, it's like they want to pass on their wisdom and experience.
And that's a valuable thing, even if their way of communicating is a little unusual.
So for our listener who's specifically interested in repurposing plans,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think is the most important takeaway from all this?
Well, I think it reinforces the idea that you can learn from anyone.
Yeah.
And that inspiration can come from the most ordinary places.
Like this person's YouTube channel.
Exactly. They might not be a professional gardener or a DIY expert in the traditional sense.
But they have so much passion and resourcefulness.
And a willingness to experiment.
And I think that's what's so inspiring.
It is. You show us that you don't need fancy tools or expensive materials.
To create something amazing.
It's about using what you have, thinking outside the box, and not being afraid to try new things.
And their approach to plant rescue is a perfect example of that.
Right. They see the potential in something that most people would just discard.
And they transform it into something beautiful and useful.
And I think that make do and mend attitude can be applied to so many areas of our lives.
Absolutely. It's about being more resourceful, more sustainable, and more creative in how we approach challenges.
Exactly. We can all learn from their willingness to experiment, to adapt, and to find solutions, even in unconventional circumstances.
And beyond the practical tips and tricks, these videos offer a glimpse. glimpse into a whole different way of thinking and interacting with the world.
Yeah, they challenge us to be more open-minded.
And to appreciate the diversity of human experience.
Precisely. They may not communicate in a conventional way.
But their message is loud and clear.
Resourcefulness,
creativity,
and a willingness to learn can empower us to overcome obstacles and achieve our goals.
And there's still more to uncover.
Oh, yeah.
In the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore the speakers' social interactions, their thoughts on community issues, and their personal reflections on life and work.
It's going to be fascinating.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into these Doctor's Brew videos.
Yeah, it's amazing how much we've learned about this guy already.
I know, right? We've seen his gardening skills, his DIY ingenuity.
Yeah, his crazy recording setup.
And that whole make do and mend philosophy.
Definitely, and in these last few videos,
yeah,
we start to see even more.
Like what?
Like his interactions with other people.
Oh, yeah.
And how he deals with, like, community issues.
Yeah, there's that one part where he goes to an outdoor concert.
Right, the Michty Quartet or something.
Yeah, something like that.
And he seems to be really enjoying the music.
He does, and he even, like, shares his food with somebody.
Yeah, it's nice to see that side of him.
It shows that he's not just a lone wolf all the time.
Totally. Like, everyone needs some social interaction.
Even if you're a hardcore DIYer.
Exactly.
Then there's that whole thing about his watch changing faces.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
I gotta be honest, I kind of got lost in the technical details there.
Yeah, it gets a little complicated. But it's interesting how he approaches the problem. He just systematically goes through all the steps.
Yeah.
Checks online resources, and eventually figures it out.
It's impressive.
Yeah, very persistent.
Definitely, and that persistence is definitely put to the test when he starts talking about the apartment above him and all the problems he's having with building management.
Yeah, that's where things get a little heated.
A little bit, yeah.
But I mean, I can understand his frustration.
Oh, totally.
I mean, we've seen how meticulous he is about his own space.
Yeah.
So when he sees other people being careless or incompetent, it's got to drive him crazy.
It's like a slaps the face.
Pretty much. And he goes on these rants about, like, broken showers in the gym and that repair job that took forever to fix.
It's clear that this stuff really bothers him.
Yeah, it's not just like a minor annoyance.
No, it's like a real source of stress.
And what I find interesting is that he tries to explain all these things to Abby.
Right.
Like he's trying to teach them a lesson.
Like, hey, this is what happens when you don't take care of things.
Yeah, or watch out for these kinds of people.
Right. It's like he's trying to protect Abby in a way.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of care and concern there.
So we've seen this guy as a gardener, a problem solver, a tech enthusiast, and now as a community member.
Yeah.
Dealing with real world problems.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. So for our listener who's really into that whole repurposing plants thing,
yeah,
what do you think they should take away from all this?
I think the biggest takeaway is that inspiration can come from anywhere and from anyone.
Even from a guy on YouTube with a unique communication style.
Exactly. He might not be a professional gardener.
Right.
But he's got this passion and resourcefulness that's really contagious.
Definitely.
And he shows us that you don't need fancy tools or expensive materials to create something amazing.
It's about being resourceful and creative.
And not being afraid to experiment.
And I think his approach to community engagement, even with all the frustrations, is a good reminder that we can all make a difference.
Absolutely. It's about being an active participant in your community.
Whether it's your garden, your apartment building, or your neighborhood.
These videos offer a glimpse into a life lived with intention.
Yeah, a life where resourcefulness, creativity, and community all come together.
It's inspiring.
It is. We've learned so much from this deep dive.
Now, right.
About gardening, problem solving, communication, and even community engagement.
It's been a wild ride.
It has. So what's the one thing you want our listener to remember?
Embrace the unconventional.
Okay.
Look for inspiration in unexpected places. And remember, even a discarded plant can have a second life.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those creative sparks flying.